Hi friends, welcome again to the second video, self-care, or spirituality and self-care, and the minister. Now why I focus on self-care versus spirituality is because in my job description, spirituality is not listed, but self-care is. So on that job description, if you have the Word document open, you'll find sets goals for ongoing self-care by maintaining a healthy balance of one's own physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being to include rest, recreation, and professional development. It also works collaboratively with M&P to meet these goals. So that's what self-care is. By now, many of you have probably realized that I love to be busy, and I do. And I love my work, and I do. This is actually very common among clergy. In fact, burnout rates are widely publicized. Probably not the direction you thought I was going with those first two sentences, but burnout is real. For example, according to the website Soul Shepherding, and the link is there, did you know that? And this is a list of what I find the most surprising or the most relevant statistics I would like to share with you. There are actually far more on that website. So if you want to click on that website, you'll see a whole list of numbers. So for those of you who like numbers, you are in paradise. For those of you who don't like numbers, brace yourselves. So 75% of pastors report being extremely stressed or highly stressed. 90% of ministers, so pastors and ministers, this comes from the States, but they're the same. So 90% work between 55 and 75 hours per week. 70% say that they're grossly underpaid. 40% say that they are in serious conflict with someone from the congregation at least once a month. 78% were forced to resign from their church, 63% at least twice, most commonly because of church conflict. 91% have experienced some form of burnout in ministry, and 18% say that they are, quote, fried to a crisp right now. 70% of pastors say that they have lower self-esteem now than when they entered ministry. 70% constantly fight depression. 50% admit to using pornography, and 37% report inappropriate sexual behavior with someone in the church. 70% do not have someone they consider a close friend. 72% only study the Bible when preparing for sermons or lessons. 16% are very satisfied with their prayer life. 47% are somewhat, and 37% are either somewhat dissatisfied or very dissatisfied, spending more time in quiet prayer or listening to God versus making requests was correlated with higher satisfaction. So just meditating, just breathing it in, 37% somewhat to very dissatisfied. 44% of ministers do not take a regular day off. 31% don't exercise, while 37% do exercise at least 3 to 4 times a week as recommended. 85% never take sabbatical. So friends, working in the church in 2021 is not for the faint at heart. I'm not going to tell you which ones I fall under. Only actually a few, actually. I was surprised. I'm quite good. But anyway, not only do ministers comfort and hold many of your anxieties, fears, and burdens, but they also have to manage our own. I have experienced 2 unhealthy extremes. So whenever you hear all this and all these big numbers, people want to respond. So I have experienced 2 unhealthy extremes from people in response to this. I want to acknowledge, though, that both of these, and I understand that both of these responses that people have come with the best of intentions. However, good intentions do not justify unhealthy patterns. So the first extreme that people go to when they hear about all this overworkedness and how stressed it is and so forth, the first is to exclude me from things. Perhaps it's a committee meeting or a decision about the building. The intention is good. People don't want to waste my time. I do have a lot on my plate. They want me to focus on the things that really matter. The problem is that it's very short-sighted and limited understanding of my role as the leader of the church. By excluding the minister from the option of participating, the minister may feel disempowered, unwanted, and even rejected. Additionally, the minister's role is to hold all the many moving pieces of church life together so that everyone's flowing down the stream in the same direction without crashing into each other because people are overstepping their specific roles. Exclusion actually creates more work for the minister because ultimately I end up being involved with hurt feelings or active conflicts within the congregation, a result of lack of leadership and miscommunication. Worse yet, if an objective, informed overseer like myself is not involved, people may tend to bury these negative experiences rather than addressing them in healthy Christian ways. This act of burying and avoiding conflict delays resolutions and is an example of unhealthy behavior at Deer Lake United. And some of this can last for decades. Also, I want to go back to and talk about how if I'm excluded, you're not giving me that option to exclude myself. So you're forcing my exclusion versus my wanting to be excluded, which there are times for that. The other extreme from exclusion is hypercriticism of the minister. If the minister is going to be involved in the church as a whole and all that means, then the minister is often held to an extremely high standard in satisfying everyone's personal expectations. It's easy to forget that 20 people can easily have 20 shades of preferred wall color in mind and 20 different coffee tastes. All of these are shared with the minister. Rarely are church decisions as simple as one person wants it this way, including my own preferences. They are instead made with the greater good in mind. Many at Deer Lake United do not realize how contradictory the congregation can be. One person will complain about hating a decision while another rejoices in it. I believe that the reason so many are unaware of these differences is because the culture actively avoids expressing opposing viewpoints with each other for fear of conflict arising. The result of this selective mutism is that everyone, except the minister, thinks that their opinion is the most prevalent, and the minister ends up being held accountable for not fulfilling each and every personal wish. These results these extremes are the result of good intentions. The first, exclusion of me, has good intentions of not wanting to bother me or wasting my time. The second, hypercriticism, has good intentions of wanting things to be done a particular way because it's perceived as being the best way or the right way. And so it's care for me that this has to be done this way. However, the consequences I experience because of these good intentions actually have a negative impact on me. Either I'm excluded or I can do nothing just right. That's not healthy. That's not a healthy or attractive work environment for ministers. As I opened with, I love this work. I am called by God to do this work. I love being involved, working with all of you to live out God's calling through the church. And yes, I do stay busy, and I create work for myself, such as the study, to stay busy. I love jumping from one thing to another. That is part of who I am. So rather than exclude or hypercriticize, what I need from the congregation is support and love. This is not just the MMP's job. This is the entire congregation's job. So how do you determine what support and love I receive? In healthy relationships, both parties mutually agree upon the terms of that relationship, usually informally over time. Where one is in need, the other should not force what is perceived to be needed. Instead, through relationship, through conversation, one's needs are identified and the other considers if they're willing to provide for those needs. Not all needs can be met and not all gifts will be received. It's a conversation. It's a relationship. Therefore, knowing how stressful the minister's job can be, going through all those statistics and being like, wow, those are some serious things, I do need and recognizing that I do need help and support. The response isn't to exclude or criticize or even force a solution. The best response is to ask, "What do you need, Joseph? How can I help you today?" When is the last time you asked that of me? Number one answer, every time. I'll go ahead and tell you the answer. Keep working on living in community, relationally living with one another in healthy and Christian ways. If you want to make my life easier, treat one another with love, respect, and honesty. Honor that your personal preferences are not a priority for the church. Respect that lots of people have lots of differing views. Trust that I will be well, even when things are not done to your satisfaction. Oh, all will be well. Sorry, had a line there. Trust that all will be well, even when things are not done to your satisfaction or taste. Trust me to set healthy boundaries, and trust my decisions are not haphazardly made. The new governance structure's foundation is trust and relationship. This is going to be a huge growing edge for this congregation, but trusting either me or ultimately, really, you should be trusting God with this church is going to be essential if this church is going to flourish. And we are going to have to learn how to be in relationship with each other in healthy and Christian ways. This does not mean we avoid conflict. In fact, it's the opposite. We embrace respectful conflict, but manage and deal with it in healthy ways. My self-care is made easier when the church is a healthy place to be. So that's why some of you might be thinking, isn't this supposed to be about you and your role, and now you're talking about us and our role? Because my role in health and self-care is fully dependent on you. Well, that's not true. Let me pause. I'm getting carried away with my thing. It's interdependent. So if you're not familiar, I'm going to go off script completely. If you're not familiar with this concept, there's independence and dependence. There's interdependence, which means it's connected. So my self-care is interdependent, not fully dependent, but interdependent on the health of the church. So my self-care is made easier when people consult and converse with me versus exclude or avoid me. My self-care is made easier when the church members hold their tongue on things that don't matter in the big picture, or things that there is no clear right or wrong, which is most of life. A lot of the culture at Deer Lake is black and white. There's a right way and there's a wrong way, and that's just not true. I don't know how to say it. That's not true. Moving forward in the future, I will be setting more limits. So this is kind of a disclaimer. I'm going to be setting more limits around my time by structuring it a bit differently, and that will be announced in the coming months. This does not mean that I am burned out. I am more passionately in love with Deer Lake United than ever before, and I have tremendous hope in its future than ever before. But I do need to set better boundaries around my work and my availability. As a consequence, I need for you to trust that I'm tending to matters that are most essential and that decisions that I make are in the best interest of the church. I am human and will not get everything perfect, but I don't have to. God has us. God has me as your minister, and God has us as Deer Lake United. So you will be seeing changes in how I allocate my time, mainly because of self-care and the new governance structure. But that is not a negative. It's a positive. It's a positive in the light of the positive direction we're heading together. We cannot be the same church that we were in 2020. We are changing, and so too must my leadership. But what will never change is that I need you and your help in leading this church. I need you to ask, how can I help? And no matter what, I am here for you, to support you, to challenge you, to comfort you, to assure you, to teach you, to listen to you, to compromise with you, and to be your minister. And for that, I give my thanks and my praise, for it is my honor, and has been and will be my honor, to be here with you in this time of resurrection. So friends, what are the reflection questions for this section? There are 2 now. First is, what is my role in self-care? That dependency versus codependency. I'm tripping up on that. I'm still thinking about that. And 2 is, what is your role in helping the minister's self-care? How can you help the minister in making sure the minister feels supported and loved? So those are the 2 questions I'll leave you with. Thank you for watching this video, friends, and I will see you next week when we talk about administration. Another good one. All right, see you then. Bye-bye.